My name is Kitisak. I'm 80 years old, and I want to tell you something that I wish someone had told me much earlier, before I wasted so many years waiting for money to change my life from the outside. When something big is about to change in your financial life, the first sign almost never appears in your bank account. It appears in your mind. It appears in the way you look at your life, in the way you stop lying to yourself, in the way you become unable to tolerate your old excuses. That is the part most people never see. They think the change begins when the money arrives. It does not. The money is usually the last thing to move. First, something moves inside you. First, an old pattern breaks. First, a false belief becomes too heavy to keep carrying. First, you begin to see clearly what you have been doing to keep yourself small. And if this feels close to something you are living right now, stay with me, because what I am about to share may change how you understand your entire financial story. I was born in a small village in northern Thailand, where money was never an abstract subject. It was food, medicine, repairs, school, roof tiles, debt, and worry. It was the difference between sleeping a little easier and lying awake with a tight chest. So I understand why financial change feels so important. I understand why people long for that one turn in life that will finally bring relief. I understand why they search for signs, for timing, for hidden meanings, for the feeling that something is about to shift. I did the same. For many years I believed that my life would improve when the right external event finally happened. A better opportunity, more support, more resources, the right opening, the right person, the right break. But what I did not understand then was that even when the outer event came, if the inner structure had not changed, I would still be the same man, meeting the new money with the same fear, the same confusion, the same old habits. You see, this is where most people get it wrong. They think prosperity is mainly about arrival. More money arrives, better opportunities arrive, better timing arrives. But very often what actually changes a financial life is not the arrival itself. It is the person who is now finally able to hold what arrives without turning it into another source of fear. That is the secret. Real financial change usually begins in the way you think, the way you decide, the way you stop avoiding, the way you stop betraying what you already know. It begins in honesty. And honesty is rarely dramatic. It is quiet. It is uncomfortable. It often feels less like inspiration and more like the end of self-deception. There was a period in my life, already well into my later years, when I began to notice this very clearly. Outwardly, not much had changed. I still lived simply. I still had responsibilities. I still had limits. But inwardly, something was shifting. I could no longer tolerate vagueness around my financial life. I could no longer tell myself the same stories and still believe them. I could no longer say someday with the same comfort as before. That was the first sign. Not more money, less tolerance for illusion. That may sound small, but it is not. The day a person begins to feel uncomfortable inside their own old excuses is a very important day. It means a deeper intelligence is waking up. It means the old pattern is weakening. It means the life they have been repeating is beginning to lose its hold. The first real sign that something big is about to change in your financial life is that you stop romanticizing confusion. For years, many people live with a vague relationship to money. They kind of know how much comes in, kind of know how much goes out, kind of know they should be doing better, kind of know they need to make changes. But vagueness is a hiding place. It protects you from the discomfort of reality, but it also protects reality from being changed. When something big begins to move, the vagueness becomes intolerable. You want to see the numbers clearly. You want to know exactly what is happening. You stop confusing emotional avoidance with hope. You begin to understand that clarity is not the enemy of peace. It is the beginning of it. And here's what I didn't understand then. I thought avoiding the numbers protected me from stress. In reality, it fed it. The numbers themselves were often less frightening than the fog I built around them. The mind is very good at turning uncertainty into dread. A person can suffer for months over what they are not looking at. And the moment they finally look, they discover that although the truth is uncomfortable, it is workable. This is one of the greatest changes that can happen in a financial life, when fear of knowing becomes less powerful than the desire to see. If you are at that point, do not ignore it. Something big is already moving. The second sign is that you begin to see your own value with more precision. Not vanity, not ego, precision. Most people either underestimate themselves or inflate themselves. Both are forms of confusion. Real financial change begins when a person starts asking a more honest question. What do I actually do that matters? What do I solve? What burden do I reduce? What value do I create in concrete terms? This question is humbling because it takes you away from fantasy and into truth. And truth is where prosperity becomes possible. Because money in the real world follows value more consistently than it follows hope, need, or effort alone. This is where almost nobody wants to look. They want money to arrive before they have truly understood what they are offering. They want reward before definition. They want increase before clarity. But the people whose financial lives genuinely shift are often the ones who begin to see themselves differently first. They stop saying, I work hard, and start saying, this is what my work actually changes for others. They stop charging from insecurity and start charging from truth. They stop hiding behind modesty when what is really there is fear. That shift does not happen in the wallet first. It happens in the self-concept. And when the self-concept changes, the money eventually follows. If these words are helping you see something clearly, maybe this is the right moment to stay close to this space. Sometimes one honest message heard at the right time can save someone years of confusion. If that is happening for you now, stay with me. There is more here for you. The third sign that something big is changing is that you begin to act before you feel fully ready. This is one of the most reliable signs I have ever seen. A person who is still waiting for the perfect emotional state before making the important financial move is still living under the old pattern. The person who is changing begins to move even with fear present, not recklessly, not blindly, but honestly. They make the call. They look at the accounts. They raise the price. They ask the question. They stop postponing the one conversation that could alter the whole direction of things. This is deeply spiritual, even if it sounds practical, because it means the person has stopped worshipping comfort. They are finally choosing truth over temporary emotional safety. You know what surprised me most? The amount of suffering I could have avoided if I had understood earlier that readiness is often produced by action, not the other way around. I spent too many years waiting for certainty, too many years believing that the right moment would feel different. But often the right moment feels like discomfort and clarity arriving at the same time. It feels like knowing what must be done before feeling emotionally prepared to do it. If that is where you are, do not mistake it for a sign that you should wait longer. It may be the exact sign that change has already begun. The fourth sign is that your relationship with excuses starts to rot. I mean that very literally. The old reasons that once comforted you begin to taste false in your mouth. It's not the right time. I need to think more. I'm not the kind of person who can do that. Maybe later. If things were different, then I would. All these sentences start to lose their power. They stop feeling wise. They start feeling like cages. This is a very holy discomfort, because as long as excuses still feel safe, a person can stay exactly where they are for many more years. But when excuses begin to sound dead inside you, the old life loses one of its strongest supports. The fifth sign that something big is changing in your financial life is that you begin to feel the cost of inaction more sharply than the discomfort of action. This is a turning point. Before this, action feels risky and avoidance feels protective. After this, avoidance begins to feel more expensive than action. The person can finally feel that staying the same is no longer neutral. They see the actual cost of delay, the lost years, the repeated strain, the emotional exhaustion of carrying the same unresolved financial patterns month after month, year after year. This change in perception is everything, because people do not usually move when action feels hard. They move when not acting starts to feel unbearable. What most people don't realize is that many financial lives are not stuck because there are no opportunities. They are stuck because the person still has enough comfort inside the old pain to keep repeating it. Once that comfort dies, movement begins. Once a person becomes truly tired of the old pattern, a deeper force appears. It is not always pleasant, but it is clean. It says, enough. We are not doing this old thing anymore. That is not yet prosperity in the visible sense, but it is one of its truest beginnings. The sixth sign is that you stop needing outside confirmation before trusting your own clarity. This is a huge shift. The old mind waits for permission. It waits for the teacher, the market, the family, the friend, the sign, the validation. The changing mind begins to trust what it sees, even before everyone around it agrees. It does not become arrogant. It becomes internally anchored. It knows with more sobriety when something is no longer working. It knows when a price is too low. It knows when a habit is draining too much. It knows when a path has ended. And because it knows, it begins to act with more steadiness and less dependence on external approval. The seventh sign is perhaps the most important. Your definition of prosperity itself begins to deepen. You stop thinking only in terms of more and begin thinking in terms of right relationship. Right relationship with money, with value, with effort, with rest, with enough. This changes everything, because a person who defines prosperity only as more can receive more and still feel poor. A person who defines prosperity as truthful, sustainable, conscious flow can begin to feel wealth before the outer numbers become dramatic. And ironically, that deeper definition often creates the very conditions in which more can finally remain. At my age, I can tell you this without drama. The biggest changes in financial life almost never begin with money. They begin with honesty. They begin with seeing. They begin with the end of self-deception. They begin with a person becoming less available to confusion and more willing to act from clarity. The world sees the later stage and calls it luck or a breakthrough. But the true breakthrough happened much earlier, in silence, in the moment someone finally stopped betraying what they already knew. So tell me in the comments, what old excuse is starting to lose its power in you? What are you finally seeing that you can no longer unsee? I want to know. And if these words are helping you recognize that something is indeed moving in your financial life, stay close to this space. Subscribe. Leave a like. Not for me, for the part of you that is finally ready to stop waiting for change and start becoming the person who can receive it.